They say your whole world changes the moment you become a mother. Mine did too, but not for the reasons I expected. Because the moment my husband, Ryan, looked at our newborn son for the first time, he didn't cry or smile or even reach for him. He just stared and said, "Which city are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. And hey, make sure you watch till the end. Something's going to happen that you won't see coming." "We need a DNA test." Immediately, the room fell dead silent. Then with the most casual smirk, he added, "He's too good looking to be mine." It was like the air had been sucked right out of the room. I sat there in my hospital bed, holding our newborn Caleb, just hours after labor, and for a second I couldn't breathe. My arms tightened instinctively around him. His skin was still, soft and slightly pink, his tiny fingers curled into a fist near his cheek. He made a soft little cooing sound, unaware of the silence that followed. His father's words. At first, I laughed because what else do you do when the man you've been married to for 4 years says something so absurd? But no one else joined in. One of the nurses chuckled awkwardly, more out of discomfort than amusement. My mom, who'd been scrolling through her phone near the window, suddenly stiffened. "Ryan," I said, trying to keep my voice light, "what are you even talking about?" He didn't laugh. He just stood there, arms crossed, looking at Caleb like he was trying to solve a riddle. His eyes narrowed slightly, and that stupid smirk never left his face. "I'm just saying," he shrugged. "Those eyes, that hair, that little chin dimple. I mean, come on." There's no way he got all the good genes. I felt my cheeks flush, not from the compliment, but from the implication. My chest tightened, like a rope slowly winding around my lungs. I tried to laugh again, but it came out thin. "So, you're serious? You actually want a test?" Ryan walked closer to the bed and leaned down, looking at Caleb. "Just to be sure," he said, like we were talking about checking the oil in a car, not questioning the paternity of our newborn son. I felt a slow burn crawl up my neck. My hands trembled slightly as I shifted Caleb in my arms, cradling him closer to my chest. His warmth was the only thing grounding me. From the corner of my eye, I saw my mom rise from her chair, arms folded tightly across her chest. Her mouth was pressed into a thin line. She didn't say a word, but I knew exactly what she was thinking. She never trusted Ryan, not fully. And maybe in that moment, I didn't either. I looked at my husband, the man who held my hand through every appointment, who painted the nursery pale green, who told me we'd name our son after his grandfather, and I saw someone else. Someone cold, detached, suspicious, just covering all the bases. He said again with a shrug, like it was no big deal. But it was a big deal, because suddenly everything felt different. The room, the joy, even Caleb's soft breathing. It was all undercut by the shadow Ryan had just cast. Why did his words hurt so much? Wasn't I enough? Didn't he trust me? I didn't have the answers yet, but I knew one thing for sure. This moment should have been beautiful, and instead, it was the beginning of something I never saw coming. After Ryan made that comment, everything shifted, not just in the room, but inside me. You'd think after giving birth, your only thoughts would be about the baby, counting fingers and toes, memorizing every blink, falling in love all over again every time they yawn. But instead, I couldn't stop thinking about him, Ryan, and what he said. We were discharged 2 days later. My mom insisted on staying with us for a while to help out, but I knew deep down, she didn't trust Ryan to be alone with me. I told her she was being dramatic. She didn't argue, just gave me that look, tight-lipped, eyes soft with concern. Ryan, on the other hand, acted like everything was fine, normal. He didn't bring up the DNA test again, not once. He changed diapers, made jokes, even took selfies with Caleb for Instagram, writing captions like, "Already got my mini-me." I tried to let it go, told myself it had been a stupid joke, said at the worst possible time, but something inside me had started to ache. A quiet, gnawing kind of ache. The kind you can't really point to, but feel in your bones. It wasn't just the comment. It was how he looked at Caleb sometimes, like he was trying to figure him out. I caught him one night, just standing over the crib staring. He didn't notice I was watching. His brow was furrowed, eyes squinting a little like he was studying a painting he couldn't quite interpret. When I stepped into the room, he jolted slightly and laughed it off. "Just wondering when he's going to start looking like me," he said. I smiled, but something about his tone made my skin prickle. Then, little things started happening, things I might have ignored if I wasn't Already on edge, a nurse from the hospital, Rachel, I think, called one afternoon, said they were doing a routine follow-up. Her voice was polite, but I swear I caught a strange hesitation when she asked for Caleb's hospital ID number. I gave it to her, and she paused before saying everything looked fine. I asked if something was wrong. No, she said, but the way she said it didn't sit right. Later that night, I went through Caleb's hospital papers, and I noticed something weird. The wristband they'd clipped on him at birth, one of the numbers was off from mine. Just one digit. A typo, maybe. But once you start doubting, you can't stop. I Googled newborn ID errors for hours, fell down a rabbit hole I was never meant to find. I finally showed Ryan. Are you serious right now? He said, laughing. You are the one mad at me for even suggesting something was off. And now you're acting like the baby might not be ours. I opened my mouth to argue, but he kept going. Soph, you're tired. You just had a baby. Your hormones are all over the place. Don't let this get in your head. He kissed my forehead and walked away, leaving me standing there with a handful of medical papers and a head full of doubt. Maybe he was right, but if everything was fine, why couldn't I shake the feeling that something wasn't? I started checking everything obsessively: the birth certificate, the bracelet, old ultrasound records, photos. I became someone I didn't recognize, a mother with a newborn in one arm, and a browser history full of worst-case scenarios in the other. I didn't want to believe Ryan was serious about the test, but now, deep down, I wasn't so sure he was wrong to ask, and that terrified me. A few days later, Ryan brought it up again. He didn't do it during a fight, or with any hint of anger. He just said it casually over coffee, like he was talking about getting the oil changed. So, I found a private clinic that does same-day DNA testing, he said, sipping his mug. Discreet, reliable. I blinked at him, unsure if I'd heard him correctly. You're still on that? He looked up, calm, too calm. I think it'll give us both peace of mind. I didn't answer right away, just stared down at Caleb, curled on my chest, his tiny lips twitching in a dream. He was so peaceful, so perfect. The idea that anyone would question him, even his own father, felt like an insult, but at the same time, hadn't I been questioning things too? The mismatched ID number, Rachel's strange tone, the way Ryan stared at him in the dark like he was decoding a cipher. I thought you said you were joking, I whispered, still staring at our son. Ryan shrugged, half joking, but seriously. Soph, wouldn't it help you too? You've been different, anxious. He wasn't wrong, but something in his voice felt off, not concerned, strategic, like he already had a story ready and was just waiting for me to read my line. That night, I didn't sleep. I watched Ryan out of the corner of my eye, not because I thought he'd hurt Caleb, but because I realized I didn't really know him anymore, or maybe I never did. The next morning, I called the hospital, told them I had a few questions about Caleb's birth records. They transferred me once, then again. Finally, I was connected to a hospital administrator named Ellen. Her tone was polite, but cautious. Everything looks fine on our end, she said after a pause. Healthy baby boy, born at 3:42 a.m., no complications. But his bracelet didn't match mine, I said. It was just one digit off. That can happen, she replied quickly. Too quickly. We've updated our labeling system since then. Before I could ask anything else, she cut me off. You should speak to patient records if you want printed documentation. Have a nice day. Click. I just sat there, phone still in my hand, staring into nothing. It felt like everyone wanted this to disappear. Like if they ignored it long enough, maybe it would. That same day, I started digging through Ryan's old stuff, his documents, high school yearbooks, anything I could find. Told myself I was just curious. But deep down, I was looking for something to either confirm my fear or erase it. Instead, I found gaps.no baby photos, no childhood mementos, just a few adult IDs and his college diploma, which I realized didn't even list a middle name. I had never noticed that before, or maybe I'd just never questioned it. Later, when I asked him, he laughed. Fire burned all that stuff when I was a kid, remember? Told you that. Had he? I couldn't remember. Every little inconsistency suddenly felt like a thread, and once you start pulling, it's hard to stop. Still, I agreed to the DNA test, not because I believed Caleb wasn't ours, but because I needed proof, not of Caleb's identity, of Ryan's. I didn't say that out loud, of course. I just nodded and said, okay. The minute I did, Ryan exhaled, relieved. That was the moment I realized he wasn't afraid of what we might find out. He was afraid I'd stop asking. The DNA test was scheduled for Thursday. Ryan handled everything, called the clinic, filled out the forms, even drove us there like it was some normal family errand. He was calm, too calm. Meanwhile, I felt like my chest was lined with barbed wire, tightening every time I looked at him. Caleb was in his car seat in the back, blinking up at the ceiling, kicking his tiny socks off again. He was the only one in the car who seemed at peace. I envied him. We dropped off the samples, mine, Ryan's, Caleb's, and were told we'd get the results in 5 business days. Ryan joked on the way out, something like, bet he's 80% angel, 20% trouble. But I barely heard him. My thoughts were already spiraling. 5 days to sit in this limbo, knowing my husband thought our son might not be his, and knowing I didn't really know who he was anymore. That night, I couldn't sleep. I laid in bed pretending to scroll my phone while Ryan dozed off beside me, but my mind wouldn't quiet down. His fire story about losing childhood mementos. It kept looping through my head. It felt rehearsed, convenient. Why couldn't I remember him ever telling it before? The next morning, I dropped Caleb off with my mom and went back to the hospital, alone. I told them I'd left behind a small blanket with Caleb's name embroidered on it. Total lie. But it got me past the front desk and into maternity. The moment I saw Nurse Rachel, the one who had looked uneasy after the birth, I felt a jolt of hope and dread. She recognized me immediately. Sophie, right? She said, offering a soft smile. How's the little guy? Good, I said, but I have a weird question. I told her about the mismatched bracelet, the wrong digit, the follow-up call. I expected her to brush it off, but instead, her face went pale. I shouldn't say anything, she whispered, glancing around. But that night, we did flag a potential mismatch. Just for a moment, something in the system glitched and showed 2 babies under your ID number. My stomach dropped, but it was cleared. Management said it was a system error and told us to move on. Was Caleb ever taken out of the room without me? I asked. Rachel hesitated. For a routine check, yes, but only briefly. How long? She didn't answer. I thanked her, numb, and left the hospital in a fog. My hands were shaking as I gripped the steering wheel. My throat was dry. The words kept echoing in my head, to babies under your ID. I don't know. Maybe I never will. But I do know this: sometimes the truth doesn't just hurt, it rips the ground out from under you. It forces you to rebuild everything from scratch, to figure out who you are without the person you thought would be by your side. And in that messy, painful rebuilding, you find something stronger. You find yourself. And in my case, I found Liam. And that's more than enough. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever found yourself questioning everything, your relationships, your reality, even your own instincts, just know you're not alone. Sometimes the hardest truths lead us to the strongest versions of ourselves. If this story moved you, made you feel something, or reminded you to trust your gut, please give it a like. Share it with someone who might need to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more real, raw, and powerful stories like this one. Your support means more than you know. And who knows, maybe the next story you hear will be the one you needed most. Until next time, take care of your heart, and trust it too.